You see here, kid? You gotta just go for it. Don't think about what comes after or what came before. You just gotta bend your knees, take a deep breath, and jump. And you might think, what if I fall? Well, what if you don't? What if you fly?
Switching command to internal.
From the Collaborative Studios, Open the Eye, where metaphysical, paranormal, and the unexplained meet. Open the Eye with Tanya Tyler.
A few days ago, I started feeling this crazy amount of anxiety. Then it was coupled with dread. And I don't experience anxiety much. So I kind of felt off balance. My wonderful, beautiful daughter reminded me of a saying that we say in our family. A shaman told me a long time ago. When you're feeling something like that, say, return to sender with love, meaning that you might have picked up or absorbed someone else's energy. Thank you, Chazzy, for reminding me of that. It helped, but then I started talking to others in my circle that I'm not the only one experiencing this. There is so much crazy stuff happening in our world right now. Turn on the TV and it's kind of hard to ignore. And I started thinking, what is the planet feeling? What is Mother Earth feeling? What are the insects feeling? What is the animals feeling? The trees? If we're feeling this as humans, they've got to be feeling stuff as well. And I know that there's so much happening with the energy right now in the planets. I mean, it's a good time to be alive because we're experiencing stuff that is so magnificent. I thought this would be a good time to have a check-in with Shannon Gill. She is an evolutionary astrologer. She's got her finger on the pulse. She's been on the show before. Shannon, welcome back to the show. Can you explain what an evolutionary astrologer is?
Yes, absolutely. Evolutionary astrology is the exploration of evolution, both the personal and the collective, and really focused on the soul. So it's the evolution of the soul through time, with the understanding that we are timeless beings and that this is just one drop in the ocean here, that we are standing at this crossroads on the planet. And I love that you said how exciting it is to be alive on the planet at this time, because I feel really passionate about those of us that are here at this almost inconceivable moment in history. Because as we're straddling the astrological ages, or in Vedic understanding it would be the Yuga cycles, the Mayan calendar, of course, ended in around 2012. They're all pointing at the same epic time in history that not 100 generation of our ancestors stood where we stand today, which is the dying of an old epoch and the birthing of the new paradigm, which is the Aquarian age. And so, astrology is a history of cycles. So I always find it to be helpful to frame the larger cycle as the backdrop before we go into the shorter or the more current cycles.
Okay. So when you're saying that, you're talking about the age of Aquarius.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
And we had just moved out of the age of Pisces?
Pisces, yes.
Okay. And how long do we stay in those cycles?
So the astrological ages are 2,160 years long. So it's called the precession of the equinoxes. And so that is an epic of time. And the ages depict the collective consciousness of that period. Everything from political, environmental, social, religious is all wrapped up in whatever the archetypal energy is of that particular age. So this is where astrology and understanding symbolism is really invaluable to help to sort of demystify or decode our path forward. And so the Pisces age, you're looking at the fish. I'll just say this in brief because I think we've talked about this before on the last show, but it's the two fish swimming in opposite directions. So to simplify, we understand that the Pisces age was an age of duality, where there was a misconception or an illusion of a separation between matter and spirit. And, so essentially man's down here on the earth and God is somewhere nebulous out in the sky. And when we think that we're separate from Source, we're more easily controlled. So it was a 2,000-year age of hierarchical domination, which resulted in a lot of corruption, a lot of manipulation, and imbalance between the masculine and the feminine energies. And it's been the case that humanity, the consciousness, falls asleep and wakes up over and over since the beginning of time, and these are what we refer to as the dark ages and the light ages, or the golden age. So we're coming out of the dark age, and we're piercing the veil back into some of the higher vibrational energies and states, which is the Aquarian age, which, in contrast to the Pisces age, we refer to it as the return of the Purusha, which is a one-mind consciousness, where we wake up and realize not only are we not separate from Source, but we are Source Creator experiencing itself. And that part of the great mystery is waking up and remembering that. And that's this time of the Great Awakening, as you speak to so beautifully. That is what a grand time to be alive, because we are truly the way showers, the pioneers, laying the groundwork for the future of humanity.
Yeah. No, it's so true. Let's talk a little bit about what we saw, if you can, age of Pisces. What was that all about, really? I mean, was it structure? What were you seeing in that? Rules more? And then how does that relate to the age of Aquarius? What are we starting to see in that besides just the awakening?
Yeah, great question. So, I refer to the age of Pisces as an age of faith. There was a belief in something that was greater than us outside of ourselves. And there was a subjugation of the masculine over the feminine. It was a patriarchal period. And so masculine leadership without the feminine counterpart is destructive. So we've been destroying ourselves and the planet. And I'm not talking about gender, I'm talking about energies. I've been actually having a lot of clients here recently that are really looking deeper into how the interplay of polarity within is very nuanced and can be very obscure to explore the masculine and the feminine dance. And so this emergence into this new age also has to do with what we sometimes term the divine androgyne. There's this synthesis or synergy or syzygy of opposites. And so Pisces age of duality, where humanity has been essentially in a state of amnesia to the grand design, to the innate divinity, and the divinity, the power, the control mechanisms all outside of us. So the program, the narrative was that we are powerless and that we had to be informed from the authorities, whether that was the government, the church, the doctor, even the educators, or even the nighttime news, what our reality is. Mm-hmm. And so there was a lack of true contribution where, some people refer to this as like a matrix, or a machine where we're just part of this existence working towards fueling just this very minority of elite at the top of the hierarchy. So the Aquarian age is what I refer to as organismic, where we all wake up and recognize and remember that we are all one organism, and that each of us is like an organ of the body of God in a way. And when we're all giving our gifts, and whenever we're all connected to that truth, which is the innate divinity within, and giving our light, our contribution, which is actually ruled by Leo. Leo rules the sun, and it has to do with our own creative spark, which is the polarity point of Aquarius. Then that organism can work in harmony. And once we reach a tipping point, which I feel that we are, then we will reconstruct every system of our world, because they're all tied into the same toxic roots. So if there was a mantra for the Pisces age, it would be, I believe in something greater than me that's outside of myself. In the Aquarian age, a mantra would be, I know because I am. So it's the I am consciousness. It's the return of Christ to speak biblically, which is actually the return of Christ consciousness, which is, as an evolutionary astrologer, what I'm always exploring is there are different levels of consciousness. In the Pisces age, consciousness was asleep. We also, in a lot of the spiritual circles, talk about dimensional states, right? The third dimension, the fourth dimension, the fifth dimension. They're basically saying the same thing. Third dimension is time and space reality, where everything is more empirically accepted, and then the fourth dimension is about sort of waking up out of the illusion, because the Pisces age was, remember, this illusion of separation, duality. And that's where majority of my clients and a lot of my friends, and we were, waking up and doing this work and kind of unplugging from the matrix and doing our shadow work and healing our maternal and paternal lines and having these peak experiences and waking up to the magic and the synchronicities and having direct experience of the divine within. And that's the difference. In the Pisces age, you sat in the pew and someone talked to you about God. In the Aquarian age, you have experience of God within. And whenever we start to anchor and understand how to harness, obtain, and maintain those higher frequencies, which it's all frequency and vibration, then we have the capacity to ascend into more of a fifth dimensional state where we tap into infinite creativity, infinite abundance, infinite support. And this is where we are really living our divine blueprint and where we will be laying out the template for this new earth consciousness. So we're having this intersection of timelines, whether we look at it as dimensional states or levels of consciousness, where the patriarchal control machine level of existence is self-destructing before our eyes. This is the prophesied time of the apocalypse. Everything is being revealed, which is great, because we can't transform what we can't see. And simultaneously, the higher dimensional states are anchoring in and starting to exist in this other frequency, which is our birthright, which is more how I like to refer to metaphorically as like the garden. We get to return to that innocence, that purity, that infinite connection to source. And from that space, anything is possible. So that's really what I think our focus needs to be, is unplugging from the narrative, the circus, the theater of war, because that's not the best use of our creative capacity. Our creative capacity is to co-create with a focus of our precision of our thoughts, our mind, our belief, and our knowing, that we have the capacity to transform all of that, and not just the capacity, but the responsibility as the new earth creators.
So we're unplugging, and when you're saying stuff like this, you're saying like, okay, turn off the TV, turn off the social media, that kind of unplugging. Is that correct?
Yes, I am pointing in that direction. I have a degree in Buddhist psychology, so I always like to try to tread the middle road.
Okay.
This is this intersection with duality that we're really being called to the master's level of work right now, because it's not really about completely unplugging. It's not about putting your head in the sand. It's about practicing neutrality instead of duality. So if you can look at what's happening with the election, with the war, and see it objectively with some distance and just as a witness, and not get drawn into the emotionality, into the program of division, because all that is very strategically constructed. Okay. Divide and conquer. We are, because it's so easy to be seduced into that energy drain. It's a vacuum, and it monopolizes our energy and our focus, and it actually feeds that agenda. So our quest,
I like that.
Yeah, our quest is to walk the tight wire between the two, to be able to be aware, have awareness of what is being projected into the hologram, but then also to use our creative genius, gifts, and responsibility towards manifesting an alternate reality. This is the alternate paradigm. That is our mission, which is why we're here. to be the way showers for this new world, this Aquarian paradigm, which, there's not necessarily a map, but it actually is innate, because it's basically essentially about living in harmony with the elements, living in harmony with all of the beings, living in harmony with the cosmos. It's in our DNA. It has to do with amping up the frequency of love and compassion, and it's very challenging right now. It's very challenging on the planet as the destruction rises. But even in the darkest of times, and even in some of the most heinous of events that are unfolding in front of our eyes, the alchemy that comes from compassion and forgiveness is what's going to transmute and move us into higher vibrational states.
I like it. I want to go backwards just for a second, talking about shadow work. You said this is kind of like the time to really get in and do that shadow work. Can you just give a little brief synopsis of what shadow work is, if somebody doesn't really know?
Yeah. So, we talk about the shadow work. We're looking at the different levels of consciousness. And Carl Jung, the Swiss psychiatrist, he was Freud's partner, really did a lot of work in helping us understand that we have these different levels of our being. Our conscious being, our conscious part of our self is what we're aware of, but then there's parts of our experience and our consciousness that we're not aware of, that's maybe been repressed due to childhood trauma, due to all kinds of the wounds that happen whenever we're growing up, or even in past lives. And the psyche has a defense mechanism that can compartmentalize or even completely sever memories from our conscious mind in order to protect us, in order for us to survive. If something really horrific happens to a child, then the psyche has the capacity to sort of take over and sort of stick it away in like a little suitcase. This is why people refer to our psychological complexes and hang-ups as baggage. It's like we're carrying our baggage with us, right? It's the parts of us often that we're ashamed of, or that cause us pain, that we feel insecure about. And everyone has a shadow. I mean, you can just refer to nature. There's no light without shadow. And I love the Rumi poem. The quote is, "The wound is where the light comes in." So there's something that's very natural and organic about turning the light towards our shadows that is just as organic as nature. I've been teaching my children since they were little, we can't have summer all year. We have to have winter. We don't have light without dark. We don't have night without day. And so shadow work is turning our awareness towards those scary places, those painful places, with love, with understanding, with compassion, with the intent of healing. And so that's often referred to as like a dark night of the soul, or the hero's journey, where you travel into those old, places with the cobwebs, or you open those cellar doors of places that you really would prefer, A, never happened, B, that you never had to look at again. But what happens whenever we don't face our shadow, when we don't heal our shadow, is that it can take on a life of its own. And it can then manifest in really unconscious ways that can affect the health and vitality of our current life and our future, that usually manifest in our relationships, in our capacity to fulfill our goals and our dreams. It's like literally an obstruction to our highest expression, to our highest joy. So shadow work can look like, going to therapy. I've done a lot of shadow work on the dance floor, where I just feel the emotions and energies, and I let them leave my body while dancing furiously and tears streaming down my face. Journaling, being in nature, talking over things with a friend.
Not getting into that energy and like hashing it out, like what a jerk that person was or whatever, but like walking through it and then releasing it and loving it and forgiveness.
Absolutely. Because from the highest mind, the one mind perspective, which again, the Aquarius age is about the one mind, right? That we're not separate. We're actually all fractals of God looking back at each other and trying to wake up and remember that there is no room for a victim program. And, this is deep work that I do with my clients of, we all have a story. We all have had trauma. All of our parents have trauma, our grandparents, because we've been in the dark ages. The initial separation is the original wound, the separation, which was the illusion of the separation from God. And so it has permeated into all kinds of distortions that has created the chaos on the planet that is passed down generation to generation. So from the highest perspective, whenever we're looking into those painful places, we're wanting to heal those, it's not so much about the other person. Like I had a client yesterday, and she's really wanting a sacred partner, and she hasn't had a partnership in 11 years. And we dug a little bit deeper, and some issues with her father were coming up. And her father basically abandoned her as a child. So what happens is the psyche internalizes and sort of categorizes these traumas, these abandonments, these abuses, and then constellates in a pattern that then we emit like a frequency that becomes the magnification of and the magnetization of the energy that we draw into us in the form of relationships. So this is why you see people say, oh, I married my mother or I married my father. It's like, yes, we're all vibration and we're all patterns. And so if we clear out our wounds and we are able to exist just in that space of wholeness and of unconditional love and of compassion and forgiveness, then we can attract in a healthy partner. And so it's, there's levels to this work, and I speak to that as the highest level because, I think that there's another difference between the Pisces age and the Aquarian age is that it's the age of enlightenment. It's an air sign. We're coming out of Pisces, which is water sign, and it's deeply unconscious, which has to do with our emotional stories, our emotional complexes and hang-ups. And a lot of people want to hang on to their story. And and that actually puts a plateau on our evolution. The Aquarian age is, the new story is that we're a part of something cosmic. We're a part of, creating the fabric of the unification of consciousness. I mean, this is way beyond anything personal.
It completely makes sense. And thank you so much for giving us just a broad view of that, because I think that when people hear that, they're like, I'm not sure exactly where to go. But there's so many different things, like you said, even just walking in nature, becoming one, which is beautiful.
Exactly.
We're talking to Shannon Gill, Evolutionary, astrologer, co-founder of Shift Foundation. Shannon, I want to talk a little bit about what just happened like last week. I want to talk a little bit about the attempt assassination. Can you go into that? What are your thoughts on, or what are you seeing?
Well, astrologers were anticipating something very dramatic because astrology is just a history of cycles. And if you are able to read these codes and these energies, they tell stories. And so what we were aware of is that there was a collision of planets that were going to perfect on July 15th. Now, even though the exact conjunction was on the 15th, there's an orb of time. It was Mars, which is the planet that rules Aries, which is war, violence, destruction, came into contact at the same degree with Uranus, which is the storm, unpredictability, chaos, and a fixed star, Argol, which is known as the demon star. So it was already going to be chaotic. Mars and Uranus together is explosive. I mean, it could have been a bomb.
This all happening on that exact day?
But July 13th was the assassination attempt.
Right.
The exact conjunction was on the 15th, but what I'm saying is that it was already so close that we were already in the orb of the destructive energy.
Yeah, it was already coming. It was already coming.
Oh, yeah. And at 26 degrees of Taurus, so that's where they all align. And so, we all were sort of anticipating something dramatic. And it was interesting because we were also aware that a lot of the remote viewers were also pointing to this period, and they don't even look at the astrology. They have their own vantage point of getting information. So, looking back at like the last time this alignment happened, this is how we are able to make, predictions in astrology. There was a situation in World War II where 20,000 people died under that alignment. And so,
wow.
We knew that it was potentially deadly. And Argol is often symbolized by the mythological Medusa. And the symbolism of Medusa, the losing of the head, the chopping off of the head, is, a warning of the chaos and the heinous crimes that can come when someone like literally loses their head. So that is, some of the guidance that we were giving, like the energy is explosive, reactive, destructive, unpredictable. Don't lose your head. And like, how crazy is that the bullet, like,
yeah. Why? Yeah, you're saying this right now, and I'm like, oh my gosh, because I didn't realize all those planets were all lined up. Are your thoughts that we jumped timelines? Do you see stuff like that in your astrology?
Oh, I see people bouncing in and out of timelines every day.
Okay.
That's just where we are in evolution. I mean, this is a different playground since post-2020. So everything is accelerated as we have now Pluto moved into Aquarius in January. We talked about that on the last show. It's speeding up the ascension process, which the ascension process, when you talk about the timelines, those are the dimensional states that I'm talking about, the fourth and the fifth. People are popping in and out. And, so what that can look like is being in that flow state of the garden energy where everything is just, magical, and you're wielding power with the divine forces, and there's this energy of joy, and things are in flow and synchronized and abundant. And then something can trigger, something old comes up, something from the outside that shocks the nervous system, and then being slammed back down into like a lower vibration where everything looks really dark. Like all you can see is, oh my gosh, this is like dystopia. This is like fear. The economy's crashing. The war we're in World War III. It's amplifying. So I see people going back and forth between these different levels of consciousness. Now the truth is they're happening simultaneously. Our work is how to alchemically attune to and find coherence with the right channels so that we can maintain those higher vibrational states and be more of a witness, as I said, like we're walking that tightrope between the dimensional states of the decay as we're going to watch the collective consciousness continue to splinter, the psyches of people that have not quite done their work yet. It's going to get quite chaotic. It already is.
Do you think it's going to get even more chaotic than where we are right now?
I do.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
We're going to take a quick break, but I want to find out if you can kind of go into what you're thinking for the next 5 months until the end of the year, because I want to get your thoughts and what the planets are saying to us. We're going to take a quick break. We're talking to Shannon Gill, who is an evolutionary astrology. You can always email us at opentheye13, like your eyeball, at gmail.com, and you can follow along with us and listen live every Monday night at 10 p.m. Central Time on KWVH 94.3. We're talking to Shannon Gill. She is a co-founder of Shift Foundation. We are talking about where we are right now in astrology, because evolutionary astrology is a little different than just looking at the stars and the planets. Is that correct? Because it's more the soul.
Exactly. It's the understanding that our personal soul evolution is connected to the collective soul evolution, which puts a lot of responsibility on us as opposed to being powerless and watching life, being dictated for us as we're bystanders. Our participation in our own soul's evolution actually facilitates the shift on the outside, which we're all desiring.
Shannon, what are you seeing in the planets, and what are you seeing with this going for the rest of 2024?
this is a very fiery year. We started the year, with the big Aries eclipse in April. Aries is that planet and that sign of initiation, of new beginnings, the fire of creation. It's also the warrior, and so it's war. It's violence. It's with every archetype, there's a spectrum of light and shadow. So the last couple of years, I really felt like we were in this sort of existential initiation, which I do think we're still in. But this year felt like it's more time to activate. We're in the dragon year. The dragon is the mythical creature that is known for the bridging of heaven to earth, becoming the mythical being. And this is kind of what we talked about in the first half of the show about ascending into these higher timelines of taking on and living from our God self. We had the big eclipse. A lot of people have had a lot of shifts and changes in their relationship spheres because the axis where the eclipses fell were Aries Libra, which is the axis of relationships. So just kind of seeing that this is also a backdrop. There's a lot of relationship tumultuousness, renegotiations, beginnings and endings, or transformations within. And that's going to also continue. We're in every 6 months we have eclipse season, so we'll talk about the fall eclipse season in a bit. We have 3 of the outer planets in retrograde. Happens every year. Mercury retrogrades 3 times a year, so we get to have 3 opportunities to work with that. But the outer planets only retrograde once a year. And the outer planets, meaning Pluto, Saturn, and Neptune. The outer planets are known as the transpersonal planets, meaning that they affect the collective. The inner planets, the faster moving planets, affect us more personally.
That's where Mercury goes retrograde, and that's affecting us personally. But when you're talking about these 3 outer planets, that's a collective. That's all of us together, like in a melting pot.
Right.
Okay.
That's right. And so this is where we get to kind of tune into the collective evolution, right? So Pluto, for example, went retrograde May 2nd, and it'll be retrograde till October 11th. Pluto is retrograde in Aquarius. Remember, it's now in Aquarius. Pluto is the planet of transformation, alchemy, death and rebirth. It brings the shadow to the surface. So in Aquarius, we're seeing the shadow of this new age coming online. Some of the darker aspects of AI, for example. Aquarius rules technology. It's also Aquarius being an air sign. Air signs rule the mind. Aquarius rules the highest mind. Remember, it's about the awakened mind. It's about the awakened being, homo luminous. We're turning into light beings. Pluto is bringing up the shadow of what's in our subconscious. So we spoke a little bit about this already. It's saying, what have you not healed already? What are the complexes? Where are the fears? And, a lot of people are needing to get support around that, and that's good.
Pluto right now went into retrograde May 2nd. It will come out October 11th, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And so Pluto, because we're going to talk about the other ones, Pluto's transformation. So this is really bringing up in our subconscious what's really needing to be looked at this moment. Is that correct?
Absolutely.
Okay.
As I pointed to a moment ago, the collective psyche is being splintered right now.
Okay.
But when we understand that the process of spiritual awakening is about the death of the ego, then we can trust that this is absolutely necessary. And as we're watching on on the screen, right, the collapse, of course, the collective consciousness is feeling anxiety. So we are not just dealing with our own personal issues, past wounds, dynamics, but we're connected because remember we're an organism to the energy of the collective consciousness. And so we are being affected by that. A lot of people, maybe even a majority of people, have derived their sense of security from the outside, which could look like their job, relationship, even the government keeps us safe. Well, as we're watching this natural and organic and necessary disintegration, because this is what happens between the ages. There's typically world wars and pandemics. There has got to be a complete alchemy of the system in order to build the new cohesion of the new system. But that creates a lot of existential anxiety. And so that is one of the themes, I feel, for this year is dealing with the unknown. How do you sit in the unknown? Where's your anchor to faith? Beyond this one lifetime, and I feel like we have to double down on that we are eternal, and that there's something very organic about the decay process, right? In the fall, Pluto rules Scorpio. Scorpio season, what's happening? The leaves are dying. They're falling from the tree. They're decaying. They're going into the underworld. It's compost in the winter. We don't freak out. We know that in the spring, they're going to be reborn, right? Well, we do this on a soul level, and we're doing it on a collective soul level as well. So the level of intensity is not to be downplayed. I mean, we are really in it as a humanity. There's a lot of tendency right now to check out. So we've got Saturn retrograde in Pisces and Neptune retrograde in Pisces. Pisces is the last sign of the zodiac. Last sign of the zodiac has to do with endings. We've got these outer planets coming to the end of the zodiac. All arrows are pointing to the same, that this is a massive, almost inconceivable ending. And it is, because the ages only happened 2,000 years. But what's amazing, like you said, what an incredible time to be alive, the birth of a new epoch, a new eon that is sustainable and that is harmonious and that gives us our God-given rights to enjoy. But we have to understand and we have to trust that we have to go through the birth canal. And we know birth is painful. It's bloody. It's nonlinear. And because the ages are so long, the cusp could be 50, 100 years.
Oh, geez.
However, I know. However, I feel we are at the deepest part of it already. The 60s was, from my perspective, like the beginning, the equal rights. 60 years ago. That means that we're really done a lot of work already, and now it's like showtime. And I think it's helpful to look back on our lives and remember previous periods of time or crossroads where we were in a similar situation where it was really hard, it was really painful, or you didn't know what you're going to do, and it was scary. And then life happened, and that happened for a reason. And I wouldn't be where I am now if that hadn't happened. That life happens in our favor. The symphony of energy supporting us at all times. So again, this comes back to our anchor of our faith. And the faith is inside. It's not outside. It's not the church. It's not the government. It's not your bank account. The message that I get is that the path will be revealed one step at a time. There is something about preparation for the unknown, to live in such unpredictable times. We're getting all these warning signs. I mean, the storms in Houston and the power outages, and we've had enough taste of what it would be like if the grid went down or something of that nature. So there is something about being smart and being wise and having preparation, but not from a place of paranoia and fear, because we have to remember this is an energy game. So whatever we're emitting, frequency we're emitting is the frequency that we will be receiving at the same time. This is the big work for us. This is like the higher work. This is why I always say we're at the master's level now. Because to keep your eyes wide open, meaning don't go back to sleep, don't look the other way, don't put your head in the sand, because that creates apathy, and that creates us being more easily wrangled for the alternate reality that we are putting down. We don't want to be herded anymore. So we have to be eyes wide open. We have to be awake. We have to know what's going on. And then we have to be strategic, and we have to live with our hearts open, and we have to be creative, and we have to be in action. We have to mobilize. We're very addicted to the conveniences and reliant on the very system that's leeching our life force from us. Mm-hmm. So we have to also get outside of our own comfortability and realize we can't necessarily have it both ways.
I like what you said is prepping. I mean, this isn't like a fear-mongering thing or anything. This is, and I tell everybody, make sure you do have some extra water. Doesn't matter. I mean, we might be without, water. We might not, and you'll use it later on. And just have some extra food, maybe have some flashlights prepared. We do live in a place where there are natural disasters, and we're seeing a lot of crazy weather right now. Just being prepared.
That's right. Whatever happens, I'm good.
I like it. Let's go into a little bit about, just sliding into August. What are you seeing for the fall?
So Saturn which rules 3D reality, our structures, our government. It has to do with karma and time. Its retrograde cycle is June 29th through November 15th. Saturn is, everything solid. It's things that we want to hold on to. And Pisces is everything that we can't hold on to. It's boundless. It's infinite. It's nebulous. So there's this, again, we're watching sort of the structures disintegrate in a way, and we're saying, okay, now this is where we have to become really disciplined about what are we going to rebuild. So it's a bit of a mind-bending paradox, Saturn and Pisces. It's like structure versus flow, reality versus fantasy. Again, I was saying how there's this real inclination or tendency to want to check out. Pisces is the mystic, but it's also the addict. And so Saturn is retrograde in Pisces, so is Neptune, and Neptune rules Pisces. Neptune is retrograde July 2nd through November 7th. So basically through the fall, we have these outer planets retrograde. Neptune is like our dreams and our visions, infinite reality. And when it's retrograde, it's sort of like the lines are blurring between what's real and what's illusion. There's also this feeling of, can be a possible feeling of overwhelm or avoidance, that because things are amping up, things are becoming more surreal, especially if you're one of those people that's popping in and out of timelines. Life is not anywhere near what it was 3-4 years ago. I mean, do you feel that? Do you experience reality differently?
Oh, no, it's completely different. It's bizarre to me how everything has shifted super fast. And that's what I've been saying to a lot of people, be aware, because I feel like I've been saying this, and correct me if I'm wrong, I've been telling people you're like a magnet, like one of those most powerful magnets, and whatever you're thinking, whatever you're saying, you're bringing it as fast as you can to you. That's how big we are right now in my mind.
That's right. It's like instant karma.
Yes, exactly. Go back to Neptune really quick. It controls dreams.
So Neptune is the mystery. It's the mystical realm. It's everything that's boundless and infinite and indescribable. It's like the Godhead. And it's retrograde. It's at the anaretic degree of Pisces. The anaretic degree is the last degree of the sign, 29th degree, and Pisces is the last sign of the zodiac. So it's literally the death degree of the entire zodiac. And so this is, what's happening is that with Saturn, which rules our system, our structure, our leadership, and Neptune, which rules, the dissolving, the ending, and this sort of ethereal energy, they're coming to the end of the zodiac together. What happens next is in 2025, they enter the 0 degrees of Aries point. They start a new cycle. Aries is the warrior, okay? Now, this is an interesting thing to note, as we've already established, that astrology is a history of cycles. The last time Saturn Neptune entered Aries was, first of all, another thing happening that next year as well that's huge is that Uranus enters Gemini. And the Revolutionary War started with Uranus and Gemini. The Civil War started with Uranus and Gemini. And World War II started when Uranus was in Gemini.
Oh, really? Oh, okay. Just a few things. Just a couple. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, I mean, not to sound the alarms, but this is why we talk about being prepared for the unknown.
When does Uranus go into Gemini?
29th degree. So it happens in July next summer. So about a year from now. And Saturn and Neptune conjunction is the birth of a new era. And, we always want to project the highest timeline, right? So Neptune is our spiritual energy. Saturn is our authority. So we can project that we want a new spiritual leadership to be a part of the new era.
Saturn and Neptune go into Aries.
It's crazy because it's around the same time as Uranus enters Gemini. So a lot of collision of energy is happening around next summer. We just have to kind of downshift into that awareness that, and prepare for the unknown. It's not about just hunker down and hide out and wait out the storm. No, it's about being in action. It's about us taking on, you've heard the Hopi prophecy. We are the ones we've been waiting for, whatever that means to you, right, in your local community. However it is that you give your gift, we have to amplify that right now.
That's so beautiful. I don't think I've ever heard that. We are the ones that we've been waiting for?
It's the Hopi prophecy. It's so amazing. It's definitely worth reading the whole thing sometimes, but, this is something I've been circling back to for a decade. And, it's basically saying push away from the shore, allow the river to take you, and look around and see who's with you and celebrate. And it's actually the energy of celebration that is going to accelerate this process of collective awakening. Because we need to be celebrating that we're coming out of the dark ages. We need to be celebrating this awakening. So much of Russell and I's passion is around ecstatic dance, because that is, a way to collectively amplify the frequency of joy through the body, through the vessel. The awakening is cellular. It's our DNA, our chakra system. That is what connects us heaven to earth, as like acupuncture needles on the planet.
It's beautiful.
So, back to your question. So in August, things shift for sure. Mars, the warrior energy, moves into Gemini. Gemini is information. So we look at the archetypes together. So there's going to be a battle of information. This is around the time that, the U.S. convention nominees will be decided. So it's going to be an absolute circus. The whole election period. Pluto, as we've talked about, is retrograde, right? And so it's retrograde in Aquarius, but it's going to go back to the 29th degree. So you notice how many of these planets are going to this 29th degree, the 29th degree of Capricorn for the last time. Capricorn is the system, the patriarchy. Pluto reveals the shadow. So September 1st, Pluto retrogrades back to that death degree of Capricorn, and I can't wait to see, what else is going to be revealed. Hopefully it's not going to be anything that is violent and nothing destructive, and it's just going to be more of, the ridiculous misuse of power that has been laced through this corrupt system since the beginning of time, that it's so obvious that it tips the scale of awakening, that even people that were naysayers or just not have been exposed to the information or whatever, there's no way to stay asleep any longer, right? Mm-hmm. So September 1st through November 19th, Pluto is going to be in Capricorn, dredging up the hidden darkness of the misuse of power within the authority. And then in our own lives, we also have this one last opportunity to look at our own inner structures. Capricorn is our relationship to our patterns from childhood. Capricorn Cancer axis is the mother and the father. And so we look at our own dependencies. We look at our own authority issues. We look at where we need to mature, where we need to be in integrity. September 1st through November 19th.
Oh, geez. I'm just writing this note down just so I'm prepared. Okay, I'm going to be going through some major stuff, or, something's going to be coming.
Yeah. So expect things to be chaotic, see it as through the eyes of illusion. Expect there to be scandals. Expect there to be inflation of false information. We don't know what to believe anymore. Who planned what? It doesn't matter, because the whole system is corrupt. The second eclipse season will open the gate September 2nd with the new moon in Virgo. Eclipse seasons are known as portals because they take us from where we are somewhere off into the future. It's where the evolutionary clock takes a quantum leap forward. Oftentimes, because the obscuration of the light, right, is what an eclipse is, the shadow comes up, and it's like the ground starts shifting and everything's accelerated, so there's also a level of chaos. The first eclipse is going to be on September 17th, and it's a lunar north node eclipse. That means it's a full moon eclipse. Now, it's important to recognize that the last year and a half, I already mentioned this, all the eclipses were in the axis of Aries Libra, which is the axis of relationships. Every year and a half, the axis shifts into another polarity, and this is going to be the first eclipse in the new polarity, which is Pisces Virgo. So the themes of Virgo Pisces are different than the themes of Aries Libra. The Virgo Pisces axis is about the axis of the intersection between above and below, matter and spirit, heaven and earth. Think about the Pisces age. We talked about that, right? The Pisces age, where we thought there was an illusion of a separation between matter and spirit. We no longer abide by that law anymore. We know better, and we're actually now agents of manifesting heaven on earth. So there's going to be a shift of themes of like really getting focused on creating this new earth template. And the two fish swim in opposite directions. There's also the shadow of Pisces, which is getting caught up in illusion, delusion, addiction, checking out, all due to fear of the unknown. Because again, Pisces is that last sign of the zodiac. It's like we are really going to be getting probably pushed against our edges of our faith and our trust in the unseen, and that we have to visualize vigilantly the new earth while out of the corner of our eye we're watching the disintegration of everything we've ever known. All right? So it's very, very powerful, and it's going to take a lot of awareness and practice. So then we'll have the next full moon. They always come in pairs. Next eclipse, they come in pairs, will be a new moon solar eclipse. This is the last eclipse in Libra. Okay, so this, you can see this as the final chapter, meaning we had eclipses in Aries Libra since the summer of 2023. It's a new moon, so there's an opportunity to walk forward with a new template. It is a south node eclipse, however, which means there is something that's being released. So some relationships will end. Some will be launching into a new timeline together because they've done so much work over the last year and a half. And so just expect there to be relationship themes. Of course, wherever the eclipses fall in your own chart is where the action will be for you. The eclipse portal will close with the October 17th full moon in Aries. Very intense full moon in Aries. Again, I mentioned at the beginning, the theme this year is Aries and Mars, because we began with the Aries eclipse, and then we have the end of the year, Mars, which rules Aries, is going to go retrograde. So that only happens once every year and a half. Remember, Mercury's 3 times a year. Mars and Venus is only every year and a half. Mars is going to retrograde December 6th. Mars retrogrades from Leo back to Cancer. Mars is not happy when it's not moving forward. Mars is the warrior. And so it can create a lot of friction, and it's going to mainly be in Cancer. Cancer is our homeland. Cancer is our security. And so there's going to be probably a lot of where we're going, what's most important. As the evolutionary clock changes, our values are changing. We're having to reassess what are the foundational needs, what are the essential services, maybe diversifying our income, certain things like that are some of the things we might want to consider when Mars is retrograde, because Mars is our forward momentum. It's what we're manifesting. And so when it's going backwards every year and a half, the invitation is to say, is this still the right track? Is this really where I need to be going? And that's the power and the beauty of the retrogrades, is it's a time to reevaluate, so that when it goes direct, which will happen in January, then we have we're charting a new course, potent and powerful way to start the year, because we took that time.
So December 6th for Mars to January.
So it goes direct. Mars goes direct on, February 24th.
What?
So you know what that's also going to potentially create is a feeling like we're getting nowhere fast. Like, we're so programmed that January we're supposed to be off to the races, when actually that's our Gregorian chosen day. That's not really the new year. The solar new year is the spring equinox, when the sun enters Aries. If we're aligned with nature and the natural cycles, this just throws us off. We're in the dead of winter, so by the end of February, and then when we start getting into March, will be a more natural time to spring forward.
Okay, that's good to know. So our first eclipse is it the 1st of September?
The eclipse gate opens September 2nd with the new moon in Virgo. But the first eclipse isn't until 2 weeks later, because the eclipse portal is 6 weeks long. It opens with the moon, the lunation, new or full moon before the first eclipse, and doesn't close till the new or full moon after the second. The first eclipse is September 17th. It is a lunar north node eclipse at 25 degrees Pisces. So you can find where 25 degrees Pisces is in your chart. And then the second eclipse 2 weeks later, October 2nd, is a solar south node eclipse at 10 degrees Libra. And so you can find where, and that's a new moon, so that's a birth of a new beginning in the realm of Libra, which is relationships, but it's also the scales, which is about balance. And wherever 10 degrees Libra is in your chart, whatever house is going to be where the energy is for that new beginning, that new chapter. And then the eclipse gate will close October 17th with a full moon at 24 Aries. This closes the gate. This is a very intense full moon. It's a little bit of a whatever's going on at that full moon that closes the eclipse portal is going to be a bit of a foreshadowing to the themes that will occur when Mars goes retrograde in December through February. Because Mars rules Aries, and the full moon's in Aries. Tune in to that time frame to get sort of some clues about where the deeper work will be closing out the year and starting next year.
You have so much wonderful information. Talking to Shannon Gill, who is an evolutionary astrologer. She is a co-founder of Shift Foundation. Can you just tell everyone where they can find out some of the information and if they want a private reading from you?
Definitely. Thank you. My website would be a place to go to learn a little more about my work or to schedule a evolutionary astrology reading. And that is my name, Shannon Lee, Lei, Gill, Gill.com. If you are interested in any of our events, we usually feature those on our Shift Foundation website, which is theshiftfoundation.org. And then one other aspect is that my partner Russell and I, who are the founders of the Shift Foundation, we also have launched our astrology school, which is astram.org. ASTRAM.org. Astra is a weapon from heaven, and we put an M on the end to be the feminine weapon from heaven to dispel ignorance. So it's like Indra's bolt of awakening. And we have some classes coming online. I also do private astrology mentorship. Then I have a handful of students that I'm working with one-on-one. I have a 12-week journey that's starting soon. So those would be the ways to find me.
You are a plethora of knowledge, and definitely highly recommend if you're interested in any of this work or just to even have a reading, reach out to Shannon. She is amazing, and her and Russell just do great work together. So Shannon, thank you so much for giving us this update, and know that just buckle in, people, because like we said, it's a great time to be alive.